This time on ChinnyVision, 5 new games for the Atari 8-bit. Seems like there's lots and lots of new games coming out for all the 8-bit computers these days. In many ways, we've never had it so good, well, at least not since the late 80s, and the Atari 8-bit is no exception. There seems to be a plethora of new software, very much stimulated by the annual software competition by ABBUC, I think it is, German competition where lots of people submit new games and there are prizes as well. Some of the games we're going to look at today are part of that and some of them aren't. So let's look at the first game, and it's Time Pilot, a 1983 game by Konami, and only had home ports for the ColecoVision and MSX, I believe. You are a little spacecraft there, or flying in a plane, and you have to rescue pilots and shoot down all the enemies, and then after a while an big enemy will appear. You have to shoot them 7 times and then you will warp to the next level. Of course, it's originally an arcade game, and as such is quite hard because obviously it's intended to get your 10p's from you, and it has all the resemblance of games like Asteroids really, because you can fly in 360 degrees. There's a pilot there rescue, and there's the airship, and you have to shoot that 7 times to warp to the next level. But it's not as easy as you think. I would imagine in the arcade it probably had some better controller than the joystick, because some kind of 360 control, perhaps a trackball, I don't know, I'm just imagining there, I don't actually know. It's a little bit fiddly in terms of once you've got used to the controls, it's fine. But the game's looking great here running on my Atari XE. Lots of colours, huge sprites, decent sound effects as well. And we've got all those cloud effects where they're moving in parallax, which looks really nice as well. I've accidentally crashed into the spacecraft, which probably means I'll walk to the next level automatically. Here we go. And we walk forward to 1940. I think there's 5 levels in all before it presumably warps round. But it's essentially the same every time. You have to shoot a certain amount of baddies as well before the big enemy spacecraft appears, as denoted by the little icons on the bottom left. Oh, I've crashed. That's probably game over now, isn't it? It's good fun. Recommend you check it out. Total Eclipse, of course, the Freescape games originating on the Amstrad CPC and developed on that system. Total Eclipse is the 3rd game, I think. It goes Driller, Dark Side, and Total Eclipse. Well, here it is ported to the Atari 8-bit, and it moves very well indeed. And yeah, this looks all very good on the Atari 8-bit, and certainly puts the C64 version to shame. A little bit lower res than the CPC and Spectrum versions. Not a huge issue, and you have music going on in the background as well. It's Total Eclipse, which is, for my money, it's a toss-up between this and Castle Master as to which the best game is, although of course there's Total Eclipse 2 as well, but some people prefer over this version of the game. It's the same, pretty much the same map with a few additions. Well, it's remarkable they've got this moving so well on the 6502, because none of the C64 version Freescape games were, well, much cop really. It was a system developed on the Z80 and entirely optimised for that, and the Z80 is just a little bit better, sorry C64 fans, at shifting this kind of stuff around. So, you know, huge kudos to the team behind this version of the game, and it's something quite different for Atari 8-bit owners as well. This is also the first Freescape game that allows you to look up and down and crouch as well. Driller and Dark Side don't let you do that. Porting this game in itself to the Atari 8-bit isn't a huge achievement. What is a huge achievement is actually getting it running as fast as they have. Puts the C64 version to shame. Ziggy is another new game, but an old game for some people because it's ported from the BBC Micro and it first came out in 1987. And you are a spring and you have to basically collect the objects. It's a 3D isometric game. Think Spin Dizzy without the fiddliness of it. Got tiles that tell you what you can do, and there we go, collected one of the pyramids there, and if you go up a level, you go down a level, and you can jump variable distances as well by holding down the fire button and then going up or down to adjust that bounce icon on the bottom left hand side there. So here we go, we're going to bounce now and try and bounce over this, and there we go. It's an interesting, if slightly generic 3D puzzler that's been put onto the Atari 8-bit. It's certainly not genre defining, and the animation and general look of it doesn't really stand up to modern standards, but it's great to see this game ported to the Atari 8-bit. Actually, it's pretty good, although I'd still really like to see Spin Dizzy on this platform if that's possible. Drudarium is a game that's been kind of released but kind of not, in that it's unfinished. But I played it and thought, well, you know, it's work in progress, but I was so impressed I thought I'd put it on this game roundup. And you have to wander through worlds and find the scrolls. You've got a really kicking soundtrack, fantastic scrolling, and you're probably looking at this going, the baddies are only one colour, but just you wait until we start shooting them. Because that one colour, there you go, look at the wonderful animation there. Everything's running at 50 frames a second. And those lovely explosions. Remind me a bit of the explosions in Tubaruba, except far, far smoother. And the music reminds me of the final countdown, in part. All the baddies are one colour, as far as I can see throughout the game, but they get progressively harder to shoot, but that's okay. And we've got a little skeleton there. Skeleton. But you get power-ups, so as you collect the power-ups, you need less to shoot the more persistent baddies. It's reminiscent of so many games, but it does what it does really well. I'm not quite sure what extra bits the programmers are looking to add to the game, but certainly there's a lot of fun to be had playing it as it stands, although it gets a little bit repetitive. That's the only thing. A little bit more variation would be good. Perhaps some big end-of-level baddies. I've not seen any yet. Doesn't mean they're not in here. Our final new game for the Atari 8-bit is another port. It's Jack the Nipper, that classic CPC Spectrum Commodore 64 game where you create chaos and are as naughty as possible. So if you're expecting a colourful port from the C64 or even the CPC, no, this appears to be the Spectrum monochrome style of graphic, but that means it's in high res. And of course, the first thing to do in the game is click that P shooter on the top right hand side of the screen, and you have to get to grips with Jack the Nipper's strange 2D/3D approach to things, in that everything's 2D but you move around in 3D. And having been playing this game, it's a very solid port indeed. It works really well, and it has all the problems the original game had, in that it could be a little bit difficult and the baddies wander around rather aimlessly at times. But that's something the original game has. It's nothing to do with the port. The port is really, really solid. if you've always wanted to play Jack the Nipper on your Atari 8-bit, then wow, you've got a fantastic conversion here. British cartoon style graphics of the policeman look like things on the Beano and Buster. Looks really nice. So Sweeney Todd in Whizzer and Chips as well. It looks like that, and isn't that wonderful? Lots of different areas to create mischief. It's Jack the Nipper. You do various things. The naughty you are. My naughty meter isn't... We've got nothing on it at all at the moment. But the naughty you are, the better, and that's how you win the game. And just a note about the games I'm reviewing here. I've got 5 games, but I originally had 10 in mind. The problem was, quite a few of the games I wanted to play didn't actually work, and it was nothing to do with needing 128k or anything like that. Some of the games I tried, like Bosonian, I loaded up the 64k version of that, and it crashed. As always, this list was intended to be longer, but we've got what we've got. If you use the pea shooter in the wrong place, what happens is the adults follow you around and your nappy rash meter goes up and up and up. And unfortunately, when you lose a life, they still come after you after that as well. So it's game over, naughtiness 6%. Fantastic port. So that's 5 brand new games for the Atari 8-bit. Time Pilot is a really good, colourful port of the arcade game. Can't believe this was not ported to more systems. And the Atari 8-bit hardware is ideally suited to this game. It looks so good. The graphics are fast, smooth, 50 frames a second action. Really good. Total Eclipse is a technical triumph for the coders to get Freescape moving on the 6502 in a way the original coders failed to do on the C64. And I think this is probably quite a unique game for this machine as well. Hey, you've got games like Mercenary and so on, but this is solid field 3D world here. It's slightly lower resolution than the CPC and Spectrum versions, but if you've got an Atari, come and play in this 3D world. Ziggy is an interesting game, but not a special or unique one, and that's nothing to do with the people who ported this game, in everything to do with the original game. For a work in progress game, Druidarium looks stunning. I just think it's really good, if slightly repetitive. I've been through several of the levels, and once you've been playing it a while, although there's new baddies coming up, it's still wandering around doing the same thing. But then again, it's work in progress, so if the coders put new things into this game, next to things for you to see, this could be something truly special. Jack the Nipper is an extremely faithful port of this much-loved game to the Atari 8-bit. Wow, just imagine if back in the day people had actually put the effort that these guys have put into the port into Atari and BBC Micro ports as well. Come to that. It's really enjoyable. Of course it has the faults the original game has, but that's nothing to do with the port itself. It's really a pleasure to see such a big 8-bit game finally arrive on the Atari 8-bit. Overall, no matter which of these 5 games you decide to check out, I think it would be worth your while. Fantastic to see so many great new games on the Atari 8-bit.